What's going on, family? Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs Series. Let's continue examining 100 years of world championship fights. Jimmy McLarnin is to your right. Barney Ross is to your left. Now, these two men would have three exciting fights, one of the greatest trilogies of all boxing. And Jimmy McLarnin would become welterweight champion when he would defeat the Southpaw, young Corbett III. And many men had problems with the Southpaw. But Jimmy McLarnin would knock him out in one round. Barney Ross was well deserving of that title shot because he himself was a champion. And he took all comers to get that shot. Barney Ross was a great fighter, one of the greatest in boxing history. No question about it. He's from Chicago. And those fighters from Chicago were something else. They had Ever Hammer and a guy by the name of Ray Miller. I mean, you had outstanding fighters. Charlie White. When I spoke with Jimmy McLarnin, he was from Canada. There's three fights I specifically asked him about. One of them was with Charles Bud Taylor. We talked about Pancho Villa. We talked about Fargo Express, Billy Patrol. We talked about Kid Chocolate. We talked about many fighters, Pat Ballino. But the one fight he seemed to enjoy talking about was the fight with Barney Ross. And that conversation him and I had gathered a nice-sized crowd because everyone wanted to hear about that fight. Now, when he talked about the Benny Leonard fight, he told me that Benny Leonard was the hardest puncher he's ever faced. And I asked him about Ray Miller. He said yes, but Benny Leonard was a sharpshooter. He was very witty and he had a high IQ. He understood how to feint you, set traps for you, and get you to believe you were getting into a position when, in fact, it was quite the opposite. But with the Barney Ross fight, he had two young fighters, although Jimmy McLarnin was older. But you had two men who were quite equals, if you will. I mean, they fought each other May 29th, 1933. Then again, September 17th, 1934. And then for the final time, May 28th, 1935. And this was something else, this fight here. September 17th, 1934. Well, we're looking at May 28th, 1934. And I want to look at a fight between these two men. And I'm going to go through it with you. Now, this fight would be on the cover of Ring magazine. It was that popular. Everyone wanted to see this fight. There were two equals during those years. And everyone knew how famous Barney Ross was, but they also knew how dangerous Jimmy McLarnin was. It was a fight made in heaven, as one historian had put it to me. And every time I watched that fight, I learned something new. Because both these men brought out the best in one another. It's almost as good as James Toney and Mike McCallum. Two technical fighters. Two old school, well-taught fighters. Toney had Bill Pops Miller, and Mike McCallum was trained by Emmanuel Stewart, Georgie Benton. I'll tell you, this fight was something else. It was really the beginning of the 30s when it came to grudge matches and well-equal fighters. Like I said, Jimmy McLarnin was a little older than Barney Ross at that time. you would give it to Barney Ross. But you wouldn't count out Jimmy McLarnin because he had the experience. He had the know-how. He was the welterweight champion of the world. Now, I told you I had a book specifically, Tale of the Tape, Men on the Scales. I pulled that book out specifically for this conversation. It's 1,000 pages, front and back 2,000, weighs 50 pounds, and every single page, one page has probably 3 pictures like this per page. And this is what you're looking at. Now we're in the middle of this fight between Barney Ross and Jimmy McLarnin. So Barney Ross right now is to your left and Jimmy McLarnin is to your right. Now I want you to see how technical and well-schooled these men are. Now you notice they both work on the inside. They don't let the other man out-hustle one another. As soon as the referee separates them, they go right back to work. And when one man throws combination, the other one throws the same. Beautiful hooks by Jimmy McLarnin on the inside. The crowd will boo when a man grabs the other guy. They want action. Oh, beautiful jab by Barney Ross. It wasn't until after he got hit with a right hand himself. Notice those men use both hands. Every once in a while in a clinch, one man will hit another man on the back of the head. And in the next clinch, the other man will return the favor. They never stop throwing punches on the inside. And we're probably in the 9th round at this point of this fight. Beautiful jab by McLarnin. Feint. You can see the little things that he does. But Barney Ross's experience will carry through that. Oh, beautiful hook again by McLarnin. Once again, Barney Ross is to your right, and Jimmy McLarnin is to your left. Now you notice how Jimmy McLarnin bounces around on his toes. Most Irish fighters fought that way. Oh, beautiful combination by Barney Ross. Now, when I mention Irish fighters, that's the end of the fight. And Barney Ross graciously escorts Jim McLarnin back to his corner. They fought to the very end. Here's the announcement. Joe Humphreys.
Judges have disagreed.
Which means it's a split decision.
Decision makes a no welterweight champion.
Barney Ross wins the fight. Now I wanted to show the first round of this fight.
This is a rabbit. There'll be no fighting in the clinch. I'll go to a break. I order a break. Both take a step back. Clear? Okay, keep fighting, mother.
Now you notice both men, when they came out, first thing they did was establish position. and they keep control of their distance with the jab. When they get inside, they work with both hands. You notice the referee does not have to separate them. Gives them instructions to break loose, and they do so. Look at the feinting from both men. Now, Jimmy McLarnin is to your left. He actually has his back to you at this point. And Barney Ross is to your right. They both pump the jab. And they're looking for openings. Beautiful jab by Barney Ross. And a return favor by Jimmy McLarnin with the right hand behind it. And if you notice that Barney Ross throws both hands as a counterpunch, because he wants to establish beautiful right hand by Barney Ross. He wants to establish respect and control early in this fight. He's the younger man, and he wants to make sure that Jimmy McLarnin uses his legs and uses a lot of energy early in the fight. If you notice that Jimmy McLarnin is rabbit punching Barney Ross, and Barney Ross does the same. So if a man is giving you an illegal problem in there, you return the favor. That's how you handle and control that. Good round. Now this is the final round. And this is pretty much where we started off in the first part of the video. But I want you to see how both men established one another. They're never going to stop punching because they realize the judges will make the final decision. And in this particular fight, that's exactly what happened. Both men were even, so the referee made the final decision. And he gave it to Barney Ross. Oh, beautiful combinations by both men, particularly Barney Ross. If you notice that Jimmy McLarnin, who is on your left, and Barney Ross has his back to you, he's now wheeling away with both hands, and he is to your left. Both men never stop throwing punches at one another. Now let's move on to more championship fights. That was Barney Ross and Jimmy McLarnin. Now what you're going to find a lot during those days is that you had championship quality fights and championship matches back to back. See, June 14th, 1934. Yeah, Max Baer would drop Primo Carnera 11 times between these two men. Fight went 11 rounds. And Max Baer would be considered the new heavyweight champion of the world. He knocked out Primo Carnera. And it shocked the nation because Primo Carnera, at that time, who they considered the ambling elf, couldn't be beat. I mean, after all, he was considered a deadly puncher. Ernie Scaff, who was beaten up quite badly, Max Baer himself, had died after he faced Primo Carnera. And Max Baer didn't like that because the newspaper write-ups, which I have articles of, had claimed Primo Carnera doing the damage. Max Baer constantly said to the press, remember, he faced me a month before he faced him. So this drove for a grudge match. It happened 1 month after the Jimmy McLarnin and Barney Ross fight. June 14th, 1934 was when these men would get it on. At the same building that McLarnin and Ross would face one another. It's at the New York Madison Square Garden Bowl, Long Island, Queens, New York. Let's take a look at that fight between Max Baer and Primo Carnera.
Oh, good right hand from Baer. And he's gone. Carnera's all over the place again. It was the first right hand which did the damage. Referee Arthur Donovan holding Baer back. And Carnera in all sorts of problems. The cornermen think the round's been stopped, but the action goes on. And Carnera wrestled to the ground. That's not a genuine knockdown, but he's on wobbly legs. And Baer again is looking to take out the big man, and this time it is a genuine knockdown. Carnera's up on his feet. How many times has he been down in this fight?
Oh my God, the punches he's being hit with.
Off his stool quickly. But Max Baer now will fancy his chances of taking this title. Once the clowning stopped and he went back to his fighting, Max Baer showed he was the stronger man, the better puncher, and it was the right hand again which did the damage. Carnera bravely coming forward. And he's gone down again. It was the right over the top.
Oh.
And 25-year-old Max Baer.
Sure, nobody can do it. And finally, the referee motions Baer to his corner.
Max Baer would become the heavyweight champion of the world when he knocked out Primo Carnera in the 11th round. Referee Arthur Donovan steps in, says he had enough. And Max Baer was a clown. He never really took boxing seriously. Probably never even knew how he became champion. All he knew was he loved the attention, he loved the limelight, and that he got. He would eventually have to face James Braddock and then Joe Louis for his next two big purses. And he'd be disappointed with both fights. Max Baer been placed on the cover of Ring magazine several times because he was a marquee fighter. June 14th, 1934. The undercard of Max Baer and Primo Carnera had a young man out of New Jersey. His name was James Braddock. He would face Corn Griffith. And that would be his introduction to what was once a pretty decent career. We give him a second opportunity to get a shot at a heavyweight championship belt. And Braddock would face Max Baer a few months later. And he would become the heavyweight champion of the world. But a young man out of Detroit, who was an amateur star, and be part of one of the greatest brain thrusts, Jack Blackburn and Manny Seaman, as well as Harry Wiley Sr. He would have Julian Black as a manager. His name was the Brown Bomber, Joe Louis. After Max Baer would knock out Primo Carnera in the 11th round, Joe Louis, who would begin his professional debut in 34, would want that shot with Max Baer soon enough. June 18th, 1934, Jackie Brown had the 15-round draw with Valentine Angelsman. So to Manchester, England, Brown will remain flyweight champion of the world. But on June 26, 1934, Cisco Escobar knocks out Baby Casanova 9 rounds in Montreal, Canada, to win the NBA recognition of the Bantamweight Championship belt. Now on July 4th, 1934, Brown Bomber Joe Louis makes his professional debut, knocking out Jack Cracklin in 1 round in Chicago. Joe Louis, as we know, Brown Bomber. But little did we know, at least during that time, Joe Louis would be a protege of Jet Blackburn. And Blackburn would have 2 future heavyweight champions of the world. Joe Walcott, Jersey Joe, the Brown Bomber, Joe Louis. So we're going to leave this video and pick up with a new era in boxing. I'm Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs Series. All great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Salute to all my viewers and all of the great fighters in the past. Shout out to my subscribers. 100 years of world championship fights. Amazing. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Peace.